Welcome to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe and Dave. Be warned, the discussions in this podcast may contain detailed spoilers. For spoiler-free reviews, be sure to check out our show on YouTube. Enter at your own risk and enjoy the show.
I am David J. Lamont, Esquire.
And I am Joseph W. Darlington. And we are Reviews Without Remorse. And this is episode number 156. And in this episode, the Oscars go woke. Apparently, there's some new rules for the Oscars for Best Picture, and Dave and I will dissect it. The new Dune movie gets a trailer, as well as The Mandalorian Season 2. And then, Bill and Ted go back in time on an excellent adventure. David and I will discuss Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. What's up, partner?
Oh man, I cannot believe we are actually covering this movie.
Right?
If I'm being completely honest with you, there's a part of me that's like, oh yeah, I guess we do have to cover this movie. And then it's like, oh yeah, I guess we do have to cover this movie.
I gotta tell you, not to fast forward, but yeah, I can remember when this was first a rumor, and I remember, there's a lot of different franchises that are getting, rebooted or, dug up to do more movies, and then all of a sudden, Bill and Ted, you're like, get out of here, Bill and Ted. They're never going to do a Bill and Ted, but here we are.
Yeah, here we are. And you know what? We got a lot to discuss before we get to Bill and Ted, so why don't we get right to it?
Let's do it.
The Academy designates underrepresented racial and ethnic groups within the standards to include Asian, Hispanic, Latinx, Black, African American, Indigenous, Native American, Alaska Native, Middle Eastern, North African, Native Hawaiian, or other Pacific Islanders, or other underrepresented race or ethnicity.
That was a mouthful.
So, basically, ladies and gentlemen, let me sum up what that word vomit was. Okay, these are the new rules that in order to be considered eligible to compete for Best Picture, your film needs to contain these elements of groups. What did I call it? I called it affirmative action Hollywood style.
Pretty much, yes. And I think that's being very kind, frankly, because frankly, I feel like this is kind of literally the death of art. If you acknowledge or agree that the medium of film is an art form, I think you've essentially just killed it, because you're literally not going to get anything else other than Drive. Remember, not Drive. What was that movie called? Crash. That to me is probably a good example of what they're talking about. What else? Does it have to be all? Is 12 Years a Slave now no longer eligible? Because, well, it's certainly got black people. It certainly has African American people. I didn't see any Asian people. I didn't see any indigenous people. I didn't see any Hispanic people. Hey, my favorite meme going around is Schindler's List is going to lose its Oscar because it's not diverse enough. Seriously, is that what we're talking about at this point? I think I've never seen anything. It's one thing to kind of do it sort of under the table where you're kind of giving a wink and you sort of know very well that the most progressive films are probably going to get Oscars, but they didn't come right out and tell you, and they certainly didn't make you. But what I feel like at this point, do we have any are we able? Can we still laugh at communist propaganda films? Because those were films that were told by the state what it should represent and how the state should be
Let's
should
not
be
go that
presented.
extreme. It's not state. This is virtue signaling, I believe they call it, in like the most pandering way possible. But it ain't some type of indoctrination, state run, triumph of the will bullshit thing.
Well, okay, and fair enough. Maybe I need to rein it in a little before that. It's not state run, and that's not what I was implying. But I am comparing it to things that were state run, things that were told by a body. This is what you. I mean, seriously, there are films that were done under different rules. And when I say rule, I mean state rule that were dictated what they had to make movies about. I'm not certainly the government is not doing that in this case. We've decided to do it. The Oscar committee has decided to take it upon themselves to do that.
You know what this is? When you break it down, and I get what you're saying. I absolutely positively get what you're saying, and I can totally feel, exactly what you're saying. But really, what this is a case of like the senior popular people deciding what the theme of prom is going to be. I'm not going to prom, so what do I care?
But but you actually are going to prom in this case. Assuming you're going to go to movies.
Not really. Did what was my favorite movie of 2019? It was it wasn't Avengers. It was Spider-Man. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Okay, that technically didn't win an Oscar. That didn't get Best Picture. It got Best Anime. Something along those lines. The year before that, it was Avengers: Infinity War. Okay, that didn't get nominated. Just because the movie gets nominated or doesn't get nominated isn't going to change the fact that there's still going to be movies out there. I just don't like the gatekeeping. I don't like the idea that you're basically going to shut out movies because it doesn't tick enough boxes in a diversity column. Yeah. It's also so like vague because it sounds like it sounds in one respect it sounds like it's saying all these elements have to be in the movie, or none of them, or some, or one of them, or something. It's not freaking clear. It is seriously, I only recently learned what virtue signaling is, and I was like, I find it to be a deplorable concept, to be perfectly honest with you, and this feels so like that. There is no teeth to this. There's absolutely positively no teeth to this. And to be perfectly honest with you, we as reviewers for years have bemoaned the irrelevance and the oh God, what's the word I'm looking for? Out of touchness. I can't think of the actual word, but the out of touchness of the Oscars. The feeling that they have always had this superior view of what does and doesn't make film. Okay, film is. There are films you can say are objectively better than others. Fine. You want to get down to the science of it as like that. That's just fine. But you can't stop me from loving a movie like Evil Dead. And you can't tell me simply because there's not enough there's no representation of blacks or Asians or Hispanic or anything along those lines, it's going to make that any less so. Okay? This is pompous arrogance. Do you remember the South Park episode, the Smug Alert?
I knew where you were going. Yes, George Clooney's the cloud of George Clooney.
Yeah, that's what this is. This is a smugness. I mean, I dug this up. Check this out. Alfonso Cuarón, director of Roma, of Gravity, for what it's worth, and a bunch of other flicks. This is what he had to say about this. He said, "Everyone is trying to figure out ways to make more diverse cinema. The interesting thing is that it's not coming naturally. Everybody has to respond to outside pressures. That's a little bit disappointing, that it needs to go through rules and regulations for things to happen when it should just be a natural process of societal evolution that apparently is not happening." Mwah!
Exactly. That is correct. I agree with that wholeheartedly, and I agree with everything you're saying. Certainly, I mean, it's not the death of film, for sure. And frankly, maybe it is a little extreme for me to call it the death of art. Uh, it's certainly the death of the Oscars. I feel like,
For sure.
I mean, like you said, they had had been becoming a parody of themselves. I mean, talk about, just like you said, enjoying the smell of their own farts and just having no sense of reality anymore. And again, the Oscars has always been. I mean, we used to laugh because they would always go for the art house movies, the big arty movies, when something else was so much better, etc. Uh, but I mean, it's progressively gotten worse, and we saw it last year, by the way, when we saw them desperately trying to figure out how to give Black Panther an award that it didn't deserve. I mean, this sort of became something, and they were trying to sort of tell us this was more than what it actually was. And you saw them contorting themselves to try to figure out, well, how do we give this thing an Oscar without, I don't know, you know, I mean, we certainly can't make it Best Picture, but how do we do this without looking? So anyway, so now they just made it official. They've come right out and said, we're not giving you Oscars unless it just ticks off every box, like you said. And so there you go. So if you do not fall into this specific category of films, don't ever expect a Best Picture Oscar. I think it's a disgrace because, again, they've taken an institution that at one point had some prestige and we all got very excited about seeing. I mean, I used to, every year I'd watch the Oscars religiously. It just got so I couldn't even stomach it anymore. I stopped watching. And again, like I said, now they've just sort of made it official and decided to nail their own coffin shut. So good riddance, Oscars. Screw you. There will always be great indie films and fun movies that we're going to enjoy. I almost feel like next year, instead of waiting for the nomination so I could see what I want to, like, hey, I never heard of that movie, let me go see it. Now it's basically going to be, what 5 films am I going to avoid like the plague this year?
I'm sure some will sneak in because this is the first year.
And actually, it'll be interesting to see what they come up with. Well, first of all, we ain't had any movies this year, so I don't even know what the hell they're like. What's because of the pandemic, I don't even know what the Oscars are going to look like regardless.
Calling it right now. I'm calling it right now. Sonic the Hedgehog the movie, Best Picture. Boom.
There's something happening to me. There's something awakening in my mind. I can't control it.
What did you see?
There's a crusade coming.
Do you often dream things that happen just as you dreamed them?
Yes.
The test is simple. Remove your hand from the box, and you die.
What's in the box?
Pain.
I see tremendous love of both the source material and the David Lynch movie in the trailer for Dune.
None of your ancestors
I see an incredible cast. I see the eye of Denis Villeneuve doing amazing things visually. I have recently reread the book because I knew this was coming and I was very excited about this project. So, and everything that I see right now feels good, and I like what I see. I am excited, personally. Joe.
My friend, I hate to, I confess, not only have I never read the book, I never actually even saw the original Dune. So, to be honest with you, I'm kind of shrugging my shoulders like, looks good. I don't know. I kind of don't know anything about it. So, I will have to defer to you, but, I mean, I'm impressed with the director, but we like his work. I think visually it looks pretty interesting. I like the casting. So yeah, I think you're onto something. I did see like in my peripherals some shots that people had done, like the little side by side comparisons of the original trailer versus this new trailer. So yeah, I think you're probably correct that they are. Some of this will be kind of a nod, a tribute to the original.
Hmm.
But
fear is
yeah,
gone.
with that, I'll defer to you, and
Only I will
I do
remain.
think it looks pretty interesting, so I'm excited for it.
The original was actually a pretty faithful adaptation of the book. It didn't quite get some of the nuance that the book had, but it told the story, and its look was very much dictated by the book. That's why, like the suits that they wear look very similar to the movie, because the new wanted it to be as close to the book as humanly possible. All the actors, I am fine with. I have no problem with any of the actors in any of the
Mm.
parts, including the newcomer Timothy Chalamet, who's playing the new Paul. Uh, First of all, in the novel, he was like 15 years old, so the fact that he looks 15 years old is like, wow, thank you at least for that. He looks like somebody who grows into the part of this great leader. Excuse me. Dave Batista as the Beast Raban. Oh, I cannot wait to see that. Brolin as Gunny Halleck is freaking perfect. Heck, even Jason Momoa as Duncan Idaho is inspired casting that I wouldn't have thought of. And Stellan Skarsgård as the bad guy, Vladimir Harkonnen. And
Mm.
Oscar Isaac as Duke Leto Atreides. It's like a who's who of people that Villeneuve has worked with in the past.
Yeah, I did kind of pick up on that, and I kind of honestly, I kind of thought, boy, this is a pretty interesting little ensemble they got going on. So yeah, I'm with you there.
Yep. I'm very excited by this. I'm so pissed off about this gosh darn pandemic that it's probably going to get pushed off again. I mean, Wonder Woman just got pushed to, Christmas. Gosh knows when Black Widow's coming out. And this was
Mm.
supposed to be out in November. Dude, I don't even have a theater by me that's open to even if I wanted to see Tenet, I couldn't.
You know what? It's funny you say that because I actually, and I'm sure I don't have to tell you how the tenant numbers did, by the way. Pretty depressing. Actually, I really had high hopes for that film, in terms of what it meant for the film and for what it means for the state of the lockdowns. Uh, yeah, and I don't even know. It wasn't playing in my local theater. I did check, and I had to go pretty far to see it, so I didn't bother. Yeah, yeah, that is kind of rough.
Show me the one whose safety deemed such destruction. You must reunite it with its own kind.
Where?
This you must determine. The songs of eons past tell of battles between Mandalore the Great and an order of sorcerers called Jedi.
You expect me to search the galaxy and deliver this creature to a race of enemy sorcerers?
This is the way.
Sometimes it's nice just to come home, isn't it?
It is. It is.
I just was like, by the end of the trailer for The Mandalorian Season 2, I was just like, something to look forward to.
Yeah. I was very happy that they didn't give away too much in this. This was it was a simple trailer, and just knowing some of the things that we know about who's going to be in it, they didn't show a lot of new faces, so I good. Don't spoil anything, and frankly, the less I see of it, the better. The less I see of trailers, because I kind of frankly want this whole to be a surprise, and yeah, I feel like this is sort of one of the I mean, I won't. There are a couple good things on, on TV, on streaming that I'm looking forward to. Cobra Kai season 3 being another one. But yeah, I really did get a good vibe. I'm very excited for what they're doing, with this new Mandalorian, and I just love the first season, and I'm on board.
Agreed. And tell me you didn't laugh your head off in that one scene where he's at the Fight Club place and
Yes.
he arms his darts and the little baby just like looks like closes
Yep.
his own hatch, lost it.
Totally. And honestly, I have to say this too. this is kind of like fan service done right.
Yeah.
Because I mean, again, I've always said that Star Wars is such a vast universe, and there are so many stories that can be told in this universe because they've made such a rich landscape, and this is sort of exactly why. Like when you see, he's flying over a desert and there's a Tusken Raider. Oh, I know where they are. And when you see the guys in the ring and you look and like again, you watch it 2 or 3 times because you're going, are those Gamorrean guards over there? Are those Gamorreans? So I mean, I just love that stuff. I love it, and I feel like it's exactly how you do. It's almost like I don't even want to use the term fan service because that suggests something else, but it's treating your fans like, hey, we know you guys, we know you're smart, we know you'll recognize certain things, and this is the world that we all enjoy. Let's have fun with it. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to the next season of this. I hope I don't know if there's any word on making the episodes longer, but that's the one thing I would love to see is if they just kind of made them a little longer.
Oh man, here's hoping. I am very much looking forward to the new season. It's nice to have something to look forward to in less than a month.
Now, a motion picture so grand, so magnificent, and so vast, it spans 7,000 years.
No way! Yes way!
But it starts with Bill.
I'm Bill S. Preston!
Who was Joan of Arc? And Ted.
Noah's wife? We're in danger of flunking most heinously tomorrow.
A force from the future.
Can we go anywhere we want at any time?
You can do anything you want.
Is putting history at their fingertips.
Let's reach out and touch someone.
2 seemingly dumb teens set off on a quest to prepare the ultimate history presentation with the help of a time machine. Written by Chris Matheson and Ed Solomon, directed by Stephen Herrick, 1989's Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures. Funny story, this film actually was completed filming in like 1987. And due to some bankruptcies and stuff like that, it took them like 2 years before it came out in 1989. That means that this movie is basically 33 years old.
Wow. Okay. That's interesting.
Here's the other thing. People accuse me of liking Stranger Things because of 80s nostalgia. And I understand that. I can understand where they're coming from. And it's like, yes, but it's 80s nostalgia because that's just the time frame it takes place in. And every once in a while, a tension breaker comes in the form of a reminder of something from the 80s. But it's the story that keeps it compelling. So you would think that going into this, that this would be like the ultimate 80s nostalgia kick. Because it's as 80s gets. I mean, I liked it, but it certainly felt different in my 51-year-old brain as opposed to my 20-something-year-old brain when I first saw it.
Yeah, I'll give you that. It's funny. I do sort of, as I was watching this, I haven't seen this movie in years. I really haven't. But of course, when the new film came out, tortured my girlfriend and her mother by watching these. And even her 80-plus-year-old mother was walking around afterwards going, excellent, which I took as a personal victory. Yeah, the funny thing is, I remember kind of just being kind of lukewarm on it when I saw it back in the day. Cause actually here's one of my famous tangents that to try to make a point that, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I used to read those comics when somebody got me turned on to those comics, and they were these black and white ink drawings, indie comics, like no one had ever heard of these things, and they were really cool. And like as a friend of mine said to me, is they're hysterical because you're sort of getting into these comics. They're really awesome, and the art's great, and they're sometimes violent and dangerous and stuff. And then you sort of like say to yourself, like, these are turtles. What the hell am I reading? Like, is it like it's almost like are they in on the joke as they're writing these? So anyway, so I was a fan. And then of course, because of the time at which these films come out, you know, they make the films and they become cartoons and movies, and because we're living in this era, all of a sudden the Ninja Turtles, who were kind of badass and didn't say much, now suddenly are like, whoa, dude, the cowabunga dude, love some pizza, dude. You know, and I kind of just sort of felt like that was kind of like just the go-to, because this sort of like, I guess, California Valley talk was sort of like funny and popular in the 80s. So okay, so we're just gonna make everything that. And so I kind of remember, like, you know, when I saw this movie, there was a, on one hand it was wildly original, and on the other hand it seemed awfully generic. Like, okay, so we're just gonna have two high school slacker dudes talking like, yo dudes, and bogus and excellent, you know. So, you know, so there was a part of me that was like, yeah, it's fine, yeah, it's whatever. But on the, I gotta tell you, I mean, but I liked it. I mean, I definitely liked it for what it was. It was funny, etc. And watching it now, I really did have a sense of like, boy, that, you know, this is a film that never at any point takes itself seriously. Like, I mean, like there's moments kind of like how I was talking about the Ninja Turtles, where you're reading this and you're kind of like, is this, like, do they know that this is funny? You know, like, am I, like, are they in on the joke? Am I getting it? Like, are we on the same page with this? Are they laughing at themselves, etc.? Like, there's a part in this, I'm watching it just to sort of refresh, when they're, Bill and Ted are looking up and they see the two princesses up in the castle, and you know, they're kind of having like a serious moment. Oh, they see the girls are so beautiful and everything, and right behind them the entire time, Billy the Kid and Socrates are throwing a Nerf football back and
Yes.
forth. So it's like, again, it's like okay, I guess we know that it's not supposed to be taken seriously. Like, it's all for fun. And yeah, I mean, this is the epitome of just relax and enjoy it and have fun with it. And with that in mind, again, it's a very small movie. It's a low budget movie for the most part, I think. But it's kind of become sort of a quintessential, like you said, a quintessential 80s movie. It's nothing but fun. It's nothing but chuckles. If you just sort of shut your brain off and make some popcorn and have fun with it.
And that's pretty much what I did. Is it high art? No. Will it ever get nominated for an Oscar? Not under the new rules. But you know what? All that aside, you're absolutely right. It's a fun flick. It's a dumb, fun flick. And with all the bull crap that we've got going on in the world, it was weirdly refreshing to watch. A nice reminder of a simpler time. Now, I'm not saying I want to go back to the 80s, because believe me, I've got problems with the 80s that had nothing to do with Bill and Ted or anything like that. But one of the things that really like struck me, and I mean, I felt it. The whole reason that we even went down this path is because the new one came out, and I watched that, and Joe and I decided, let's just do them all. And it struck me when I was watching Face the Music, and it strikes me even more as I was watching this. Like, Winter and Reeves really work well together. Like,
Yeah.
really, really, really well.
Yes.
There's a natural chemistry, and they play their parts like just clueless enough to not be annoying. Like, sometimes you can go too far with the clueless, and it's like, oh my God, stop being so damn stupid. You know, it's like, and they're so charming together.
Yes.
It's difficult. Any other actors in these roles, and this movie would have just been a one note of history and not spawned a Saturday morning cartoon and 2 sequels. Did you remember the Saturday morning cartoon?
Vaguely, and I think I did see that they actually tried to do a live action TV show based on this, which was just horrendous looking.
Oh my goodness, I didn't even know that. I'm not even going to look into that.
Yeah. Kind of forgot about that one. But yeah. You know, you're absolutely correct that these two, not only do they work great together, but I do think there's also an element of, like, I don't really think we even realized how good these two were. Like, for example, this is the first time we saw Keanu Reeves in anything. Did you think he was going to do anything after this? Like,
Not really. No.
Right? You know, I like, all of a sudden, like, it's like, okay, he's the Bill and Ted dude. That's it. You never thought you'd see him in anything else. I thought he would just sort of quietly go away. And he did do a few things after this that kind of were a little kind of cringeworthy, frankly. I did not think this guy had a career after this, and I'm needless to say, I'm very pleasantly surprised that I was wrong about that. But even Alex Winters, by the way, he do you remember the Idiot Box?
Yes, I do remember the Idiot Box. I liked the Idiot Box.
I loved that show. I think that was like way ahead of its time, frankly. That was the Idiot Box. If you don't know, if you're listening, it was a show that they played on MTV. It was basically like just a skit comedy show
That's right.
that Alex Winter had been, the creator of, and it was hysterical. I mean, I would videotape those back then, watch them. I mean, just the guy who worked in a 7-Eleven doing the overnight shift, that would basically talk into the security camera as if he was doing a talk show.
Yep.
Oh my god, it was hysterical. So he was kind of another. What he kind of reminds me of now is like Seth Green, where you
Ooh,
see him in
yes.
a lot of things, but he's also the creator of a lot of things too. So he does his own writing, and he creates a lot of his own shows. So yeah, so basically the point being is, like, again, they work really well together, and for guys who, like, your tendency is to sort of blow them off as like, all right, so that we're doing a stupid slacker comedy, and let's get these two slacker dudes who probably don't really know anything. These guys are actually pretty sharp. They got good timing, good comic timing, and like you said, they work well together.
Agreed. Alex Winter, by the way, in case you don't remember, he was in the Lost Boys.
That's right. Yep.
He was Marco. He was the first vampire that the Frog Brothers killed.
That's true. Yep.
So, yeah, no, he actually disappeared acting wise for many years. He did some voiceover work. He's been mostly doing directing for all these years.
Yeah.
So good on him. But yeah, you were right about Keanu Reeves. Like, his big claim to fame, probably his biggest claim to fame prior to Bill and Ted in 1989, was in the John Malkovich, Glenn Close Dangerous Liaisons.
Yes, absolutely. And yeah, that was like the first of the cringy that I was sort of referring to.
Yep.
I mean, he was fine in that. He didn't have too much to do. And I mean, and you're in an 18th century period film, so of course you're going to come off a little bit of a dandy. But take it one step further. I remember one of the only things I should take it back. I do remember him doing Parenthood.
Yes,
which he was great in.
Yep, same year. Same year. Yeah.
There you go. And honestly, I remember thinking like that he was very, very good in that. But I sort of said to myself, well, because he's doing Ted again. I mean, doesn't require a whole lot. But then I saw him in Dracula, in Coppola's Dracula.
Yes.
And that's when you went, you might want to stick with the stoner slacker dude.
I always remember, the one thing I remember from Bram Stoker's Dracula, at the time, HBO used to do these things where they'd have these behind the scenes for movies that were coming out because, Warner Brothers, blah, 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 and so on and so forth. And I remember they were sitting there and they're interviewing, Coppola, and he's talking about Gary Oldman being this tremendous actor and Winona Ryder who just throws herself into their passion, and Keanu Reeves, who is a very good looking guy. I'm like, oh my god, that was the worst backhanded compliment ever.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I didn't have a lot of faith for him, but he kept working. That's the thing.
Yeah.
I mean, like he hits Point Break, and Point Break was probably what got him into both My Private Idaho and Bram Stoker's Dracula.
I'm trying to remember what was when. I think it was Speed. I think Speed came
was
before.
No, Speed was after Dracula.
Was it after Point? It was before Point Break, though, right?
No, Point Break. Here's how it goes. He was in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure the year after Dangerous Liaison. That same year, he was in Parenthood. Then he was the following year. He was in I Love You to Death. With
So Kevin Kline.
Not just Kevin Kline, but also God, I can't remember his name. It's with Kevin Kline, Tracy Ullman, River Phoenix, William Hurt. Where him and William Hurt were hired to kill Kevin Kline
right
for the River Phoenix character. Okay, and it was kind of funny watching William Hurt trying to pretend to be Keanu Reeves. I'll just leave it at that. Then he had Point Break in '91. And it seems he also did the voice of Ted in the Bill and Ted animated series, so good there. Um,
Okay.
My Private Idaho in 91, Bram Stoker's Dracula in 92, Much Ado About Nothing in 93, Even Cowgirls Get the Blues in 93, Little Buddha in 93, Speed in 94.
Oh, so that was okay. So that was a while forward then.
Yeah, so you know what? I can't really. What am I supposed to complain about with this guy now? Okay, he started off really small and he grew huge. And let's face it, we have been loving the guy since John. I mean, even before John Wick, we loved the first Matrix, sort of like the second Matrix. Did not like the third Matrix, but can't really blame him on
Mm,
that one.
yeah.
He's reliable. He's gone and become a reliable actor.
Yes, that is true. That is absolutely true. And I listen. You know, there's a lot of trying to think. I feel like this is a very familiar conversation when we were having a conversation about some actor who I thought was terrible, terrible, terrible. And then I saw maybe it was Ryan Reynolds. Maybe I'm thinking of Ryan Reynolds.
I think it was Ryan Reynolds because we were talking about Deadpool. We were both surprised.
Never saw any. Yeah, never saw
Yeah.
anything that I of him that I liked, and then all of a sudden Deadpool comes out and he aces it. I kind of feel like Keanu Reeves for me was very similar, where I just kind of, you know, again, he's fine in comedy roles, but every time he tries to get a little serious, it's not working for me. I think it was probably The Matrix when I was finally convinced, where I was, you know, I was like, all right, all right. I mean, I think when The Matrix first came out, I even said to myself, this would be great if they had somebody else besides Keanu Reeves playing the part of Neo. But then it kind of then as you saw the movie a few times, you after a while you can't imagine anybody else playing that part.
No.
So then suddenly it's like, all right, I'm on board with this. He's fine. But you're right. I think it probably took him until John Wick, where I was just like, sold, totally sold. He's awesome. He's great. Can do no wrong.
It's kind of funny how that turns out, right?
Yeah, totally. So yeah, I mean it's so with that said, yes, I mean you're totally right that the I think the two leads in this movie real I mean I guess I shouldn't even say it hesitantly. The two leads in this movie make it. I mean they carry the film. Other than this, I mean it is a fun kind of a silly almost slapstick sort of a comedy, but it really showcases these two guys. And if these two didn't work, this film wouldn't work at all.
Completely agreed. In fact, they are probably the biggest reason it even worked.
Yeah.
I will absolutely put my fist down right now and say this is the movie that without them never would have been anywhere, and I will stick with that forever.
Yeah, yeah. Um,
We should talk about Mr. Carlin.
oh, right. This is true. And not for nothing. You know, George Carlin didn't do a lot of movies. He didn't do a lot of acting parts.
No, he didn't. Nope. This was like his first movie was Car Wash. Remember the movie Car Wash?
Oh yeah.
No, he was the taxi driver that got ripped off by the cross dresser that he was always trying to find.
All
right.
Yeah.
He was, you know, he had a brief scene in the movie Outrageous Fortune. This was actually his first real starring role, you could say. And you know, he's George Carlin, so there you go. What are you gonna do? He became Mr. Conductor for Thomas and Friends shortly after.
Yeah, you know, it's funny too because I kind of feel like this is hardly like when like George Carlin was a comedian, I guess 60s through the early 90s. I mean, I guess he died in the early 90s.
He died in 2008, dude.
Did he really?
Oh yeah.
Oh wow, I thought he died a lot earlier than that. It's funny though too. By the way, you watch some of his stuff today, and it's like, boy, he nailed it.
Yeah.
So you say to yourself, did he have a time machine? Because he was pretty spot on in a lot of things he said. Anyway, I shouldn't get off on tangents, but it's funny because, but the reason why I'm talking about that is because even though this part really doesn't exactly give him a lot of room to do stuff. I mean, I don't even think he's, again, for a guy who's a comedian for decades, I don't think he says anything in here that elicits a laugh. Like he's not here to get chuckles. He's not here for punchlines.
No, he's the straight man.
Yeah, exactly. He's the straight man. But I think the fact that I think when you knew him, it sort of gave that part, and it's almost like I want to say gravitas, but it's like I'm not saying you have to get Laurence Olivier to play Zeus in Clash of the Titans to sell it. But this role, this Rufus character, again, a very simple kind of a throwaway character. The fact that it is George Carlin sort of makes you stand up and go, "Oh, I kind of get what they're doing now." Like again, if they just got some regular other guy to play that part, again, not he doesn't have to be funny, but just knowing who that is kind of tells you a lot about him. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, the two writers, Matheson and Solomon, this was like a comedy skit they used to do at improvs. So I'm sure to them, getting him was like a huge, huge thing.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, no, it's so true. But I mean, but again, it's like because he had this style of comedy where he was talking about not only, I mean, he wasn't there to he wasn't Jim Carrey. He got kind of deep. He would talk about social issues. He would talk about things that were happening in the world. And frankly, it was almost like he was a bit of a prophet to people who sort of knew him and his style. So again, I think that's like so just him stepping out of that um phone booth, it's like, oh wow, that guy is from the future. He knows stuff. It just sort of
It
comes
does seem
across without
prophetic, doesn't it? Yeah.
like seriously. I have to wonder if that was not the reason why he got cast for this.
Maybe. Lord knows, I'd love to live in a world where Clarence Clemens is the leader and rock and roll music saves the day.
you know, I think my dream, if I go back in time and grab comedy people, I'd grab George Carlin, Sam Kinison, who else?
Um, uh, Honestly, just once, I would love to meet Lenny Bruce.
Yeah, I can see that.
Just want to meet him. Bill Hicks is another amazing comedian.
Yeah.
You know,
I would say Belushi, but honestly, I wouldn't want him on stage. I'd want him sitting next to me.
would you want that? I mean, that's like putting like a bomb next to you. I mean, you never know with Belushi.
I mean, I might wake up the next day in Tijuana or something like that, but I don't.
And probably with Belushi's name tattooed on your ass, knowing him. We're not here to talk about comedy. So the basic just it's such a basic little story. It is past history or go to military school. So in the future, Bill and Ted are these, are Bill and Ted? Because after watching the third movie, I watched this movie a little closer.
Okay.
You remember the third movie, right?
Of course, yeah.
Okay, because when we get to it, we'll talk more about it. One of the things when I was watching the third movie is like, okay, I as much as I liked it, there was a part of me that's like, so what is this retroactive, thing that they're doing here?
Go on. What do you mean?
You know what? We'll save it for the third movie. We're gonna have to save it for the third movie. I was watching it very carefully because I was like, how does this fit in with how the third movie turns out? And I'll say that as the movies progress, they definitely they're not so concerned about continuity. They're just concerned about having a good time. And I think that I need to kind of get off my high horse and just kind of remember this is a dumb movie. All three of them are dumb movies with silly situations. Why can't you just enjoy it for what it is?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, absolutely, that's absolutely correct. But I kind of felt like when they got around to the third one, they did seem to put a lot of emphasis on trying to get things right from the first two.
Mm-hmm.
But was there something in here that was kind of rubbing you funny?
The way it turns out in the third movie, there is not a bit of indication in here, hint, or any sort that it could have possibly turned out that way. Okay? Like, by the third movie, they're like, oh, well, there are some that have spoken of the prophecy of this way, and so on and so forth. And it's like, they don't really give any indication that there's that. They basically have these screens of them, their albums and stuff like that. So, at no point could they have figured out the little twist that happens in the third movie. And I'm not bemoaning the twist that happens in the third movie. I'm just saying that it feels less. It feels less impactful now because there was, if they had kept things more vague about the future, maybe I wouldn't be quite as. I won't even say perturbed, just more like, is the best way to put it.
All right. Well, I guess I'll have to save it until we get to the third one because I want to peel that apart. But
I apologize. I should probably be. Yeah, no, I just. We'll get to that, and I apologize to the audience as well because it's kind of like, what the hell is he saying? It's like, I know I'm being an idiot. I'm sorry. I'm being very, very silly. But I did enjoy about the only thing I didn't enjoy was the whole moments at the mall. It just, oh my god, it was just such filler. It was just such filler that I just couldn't watch it anymore.
you know what? It's funny you say that because I know where you're coming from, and I did have a similar feel to it, but it's ironic because I sort of feel like in some way I almost feel like when they were writing this, it's almost like this is the real climax of the film. It's almost like they did all that so we could put them in a crazy modern setting and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And but you're absolutely correct. I mean, honestly, by the time they're at the Joan of Arc shows up at the aerobics studio, and like I'm kind of fine with it until she like jumped on stage, pushes the other girl over, and starts doing aerobics, and it's like, I don't, like again, like I know my suspension of disbelief and all that good stuff, but I kind of was like, that doesn't make any sense. Like Beethoven going to play the piano, I can understand that. Genghis Khan grabbing baseball bats, I could sort of understand.
Mm-hmm.
The aerobics part, yeah, not quite as much. But again, I almost feel like the writers probably were thinking that this is the whole point of the movie is to get these guys from the past to like a mall or something similar and have crazy hijinks. But yeah, I know what you mean. It does have a very fluff kind of a vibe to it, and it's like, all right, well, let's get back to the story now.
Yeah, it to me it was the weakest element in the movie. Uh, and maybe this is controversial, probably not, but I kind of feel like whenever they weren't with Bill or Ted, I felt like the movie just was empty.
Yeah. Yeah, I that is true. Right, probably goes to what we said before about the two leads just kind of making this whole film. It's so true that the like honestly some of the guys, again, I understand it's a low budget film, but I couldn't help but like watch these guys sometimes and feel like they got these costumes at like an old time photo, you know, like on like seriously, Billy the Kid. I'm like, yeah, okay. So you went down the old time photo, got a hat and a bandana, and called it a day. And a lot of the other guys doing similar stuff. Um, I don't know. It was, I like you're absolutely right. When Bill and Ted are not there, it kind of flounders, and it's almost it almost feels like they're trying to pad the running time a little bit with
Yeah,
this.
exactly. That's exactly my problem with it as well. But that was kind of a staple back in the day.
Yeah,
That was
yeah,
that was the way. If I can throw a little Mandalorian in there.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm with you. Yeah. By the way, the girl who is playing Joan of Arc, I can't remember. I think is she from the Go Go's? I know she was from a rock band. She was either the Bangles. I think it was the Go Go's though.
I think she worked with the Go-Go's at one point. Yes, and also she was. Do you remember the movie Clue?
Yes.
She was the singing telegram girl.
Singing tele. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
during the big ending when the lights went out and it's like all of a sudden ring ring, somebody's at the door. Da, 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 I am your singing telegram. Bang.
I think so. I think so. I well,
It's not a terrible movie. I feel like today's audiences would not appreciate it as much as we do.
Mm.
That's really what I feel.
Yeah, I can vouch for that. Like I said, I tortured my girlfriend through this, and she could deal with some things, but yeah, I think she just kind of couldn't wait for this to be done, to the point where I wasn't even sure if she even wanted to watch the new one. She's like, and she literally said to me, she goes, I sat through the other two, I might as well. I thought the whole point was to watch this one. Like, all right, well, here we go. Um, but yeah, I could see today's audience is not quite getting it. It is sort of just all over the place, and yeah, but again, it's like we've been saying, it's kind of harmless fun, and it's I wouldn't even call it super ambitious, frankly. They kind of knew what they were doing when they started the film. They don't really throw a lot of curveballs in it. It's pretty straightforward, frankly. In fact, if I think if anything, if there's any weakness at all, is like there really is nothing. Not that every movie has to have a twist or anything, but I mean, just a little turns here and there where you know, God forbid something unexpected happens. It kind of feels like it is a very linear story. We know what we need to do. We're going to do it. A couple little obstacles along the way, but not a lot. Just we all things sort of fall into place, and we have fun doing it. So that's kind of it.
Put them in the Iron Maiden.
Excellent!
Execute them.
Bogus. How's it going, dude?
This is a tough one to score because again, I almost feel like I have a couple unwritten rules when I'm doing this, and one of them is if the film has self-awareness and if it kind of delivers to you exactly what it promises, then you can't really pick on it. It almost sort of gets a get out of jail free card. This definitely falls into that category where it just said, look, it's a funny comedy, nothing more, nothing less, and you'll chuckle the whole time. And again, I kind of, like I said before, I feel like there's a lot of times where it's the sort of subtle nuances that are happening. Honestly, I to this day, I'm still not even sure if I'm picking this up right. But at one point, you see Sigmund Freud in the mall talking to two girls, trying to pick them up, I guess.
Yeah.
And he's holding a corn dog. He's holding it upright.
Oh yeah, that was intentional.
And then as the girls walk away, it's just kind of it's sort of hanging down a little bit. So I kind of feel like the devil's in the details of this movie sometimes. So this might be generous, but I'm giving it a 7. I think it is a solidly entertaining film. Certainly not something that was ever meant to go down in the pantheon of classic films by any stretch.
And yet here we are.
and yet here we are. But it is certainly fun. It has charismatic leads, and like I said, I mean, there's a reason why it kind of for quite a while was sort of household names, frankly. And I suppose in a way till today it still sort of is. So yeah, I think I'll just give it a 7.
You know what? I can respect that, my man. Personally, I gave it a 6. Mostly because I don't want to dismiss this movie, and because I laughed. I did enjoy myself at a lot of moments in this movie, and I found myself just along for the ride, and it was less to do with the story and everything like that. The story is ridiculous. The imagination is neat. The effects, they didn't really translate well to today. Like the scene where that diamond thing turns into the phone booth the first time. I was giggling.
Yeah.
I was giggling, and it was the wrong reason to be giggling. But there's a lot of heart in this movie. There's a lot of fun to be had in this movie, and I kind of feel like if I beat on it, I'd be a bad guy. It's like I can't really. Sometimes it's like when people say, like Birth of a Nation. Let's talk about Birth of a Nation first, okay? A movie that is so a product of the time it came out in that it's difficult to watch today because of it, because of modern sensibilities and everything like that. Now, this is not to say that Stephen Herrick should be compared with F.W. Murnau or something like that. I'm not saying. I'm just saying that it is a product of what its time was, and it was a pinnacle of a product of what its time was. And I feel like if I apply my modern sensibilities to it, I'm doing it a disservice. Because if you want to break it down, a part of me wants to be like, this was god awful. The plot made no sense. It was, it wasn't always funny and so on and so forth. Give this movie a 3 type situation. But I have to put myself into the mindset of, at the time when it came out, I had just turned 20, like literally just turned 20. So it hits me in the nostalgia, and it hits me in the, you know what? This was what film was like. This needs to be preserved simply because at the time, this was what, teenage comedies were. And I'm not gonna ding it for that. And also because, like I said, I laughed, and I'm giving it extra credit because of the 2 leads. So there it is. There's my 6.
Wow. Well said, my friend.
I just compared Bill and Ted to freaking Birth of a Nation. Okay. Well, my man, how about who asked you?
It's funny. I was sort of kicking around a couple things, but actually, what you were just talking about kind of had me zero in on something. And I like what you said about modern sensibilities, and for the most part, I think this film is very, very innocent. I mean, is
Yes.
probably as innocent as you can get. In fact, I'm pretty sure this was a PG film, and today they might make it a PG-13 just because that's sort of what they do. But honestly, I don't even know how they would, because I can't think of anything that would elevate it to a PG-13. But I think the one thing I remember kind of that did sort of stick out at me was the scene early on. The father had married the very, very younger girl,
Missy.
Missy, who they literally knew from school. Like, that's how young she was. And there's a scene later, earlier, when the for some reason Missy is in the boy's bedroom, and then the father walks in, and then the father kicks the 2 out. I guess the joke being because he's gonna have creepy old man sex with his younger girl, and in his son's bedroom, no less. And I kind of felt like, as I was watching it now, it was probably the only thing that actually stuck out at me as just kind of being like, it's like in another movie, obviously that would be pretty meaningless, but in this movie, I kind of felt like it stuck out. Like, yeah, I don't think there's any reason to go for the creep factor in here. We didn't have to kind of get that way. It's like it kind of broke the mood of the movie a little bit. So I'll give it to that one. I think we could have done without that.
All right, I will. I'm going to grant you that one, man, because that is actually a good point. I do remember feeling a little cringy during that scene, and now that you're pointing it out, I was like, "Ooh, yeah." Now the more that I think about it, maybe that is kind of sucky. For me, it's the mall scene. It's the big, you were right earlier that this was the big moment. You take all these figures from history and you put them in a modern setting. What do you do? Well, you don't do very well. Save for Freud, and Genghis Khan, and Beethoven, I feel like everybody else just and that, to me, that was a disappointment. Like, I couldn't feel, I couldn't help but, like, you knew it was filler. The whole thing was supposed to be filler. And that's fine. You can do filler in ways that works. This didn't work. It's like when you almost wish to go back to Napoleon at the water park rather than watch these other figures in history at the mall, you screwed up.
Right, which is sort of serving the exact same purpose anyway. Napoleon at the water park and these people over at the mall. It's just kind of overload.
Exactly. It didn't need to be that way. They couldn't figure out how to do it in a good way. It maybe I don't know, maybe I'm being snobbish, and maybe it's like, well, I almost wish it was timeless. And it's like, no, because part of this movie, the appeal of this movie is the time capsule nature of it. So, her doing the aerobics in front of everybody and stuff, I wouldn't mind that. It's just it didn't feel logical. Okay.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like a logical progression for the historical characters that they had. I mean, they were pushing it when Lincoln said, "Party on, dudes," for God's sake.
Yeah. I sort of, when Lincoln did that, I did the same thing. I was like, like, do I like that or not? I don't know. But again, it's like, well, how are you going to pick on it? That's the sort of the gist of the entire movie. I mean, that is sort of what this whole experiment is about. Is about like, again, just the weird craziness of bringing these figures into the 80s, and so yeah,
I won't give it for the Lincoln scene. It's just the mall. The mall scene just did not work for me at all.
yeah. Okay. Best part, huh? Yeah.
For your consideration.
I gotta, I feel like this is a cop out, but I kind of feel like I don't know anything else to say that makes more sense. But I just have to give it to the two leads. I have to give it to Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter.
Yep.
I don't know why I was having a brain fart just then, but I mean, honestly, I feel like anything else is kind of like I want to sort of like pick out something else interesting and say, oh, this was really a highlight. But I mean, these two are the glue that holds the whole shit show together, frankly. So I really can't think of anything else to say about it other than that. I mean, these two are incredibly. I think it's funny how it's one of those situations where you need two wildly talented people to do a film where they look incredibly stupid and untalented.
Right.
It's sort of the genius of the film. So yeah, I gotta give it to them. And frankly, I sort of feel like history kind of proves me right in a way. It's kind of like talking about Tom Hanks back in Bosom Buddies. It's like who knew back then? But you knew it was funny and you knew you liked them. So there you go. So yeah, I gotta give it to these guys.
That's the same thing I put. I mean, I actually put two things. One thing I said was so ridiculously 80s that I doubt today's audience would appreciate it. But as an old fogey, I loved it. And the other was Winter and Reeves have such charm and chemistry that it's hard to completely cringe at the movie. So yeah, they are the only thing that truly works best in this movie. Doesn't matter if they're being stupid or dumb or whatever, or if it's a crazy scene where they're in armor and they're, acting out Star Wars and stuff like that. And for all we know, it's not even them in the damn armor. You can't help but just be charmed by it.
Yeah. Yes, very true, very true. It's funny too, and one of the things we didn't really mention yet was the finale, which is them doing the presentation, and it's like,
yeah.
And I got every time I see it, I kind of go like, oh yeah, like so now they have like lighting and all this other stuff going on like behind the scenes. It just sort of works perfectly. They have a piano for Beethoven. They have other stuff for the other guys. But again, you just hold your nose and you say, it's just funny. Don't even think about it.
Oh, they totally. But the thing is that they established a get out of jail free card with that. The whole thing when they're trying to break into the police station, it's like, tomorrow, remember.
Right.
So you just know that like a week later, like, oh yeah, we got to set up the lighting for our display,
Yeah. Right. Which kind of, again, you could probably pick on it for being like, it almost felt like sort of like very late in the script. They all of a sudden needed these kind of Deus Ex Machinas, like how are we gonna get out of this? Oh, time travel, duh. So pretty much anything they needed at any given moment would just happen. So it was almost like the perfect writer's, get out of jail free card. Like I wrote myself into a corner, no problem.
Yep, absolutely, and it still works. It still works.
There you go.
It is not high art. Don't go in high art. It'll never win an Academy Award. Nothing is ever going to win an Academy Award again that we like, but that's okay. This was awesome. This was still a nice trip down memory lane.
Absolutely. And my friend, I feel like Reviews Without Remorse is officially back, and I gotta tell you, I love it. So I'm very happy to be doing this review with my friend.
I am too, man. I feel pumped. I feel good. I feel like I can fly. No, I'm not gonna go that bad. No, honestly, I'm really, really, really happy to be back. I feel like we're really getting our legs back. I feel like we got it going on. We're already syncing up. Okay, it took 2 episodes for us to freaking sync up already. That's just ducky.
And I swear too, I was like, I said to myself, I was so close to going with a 6. Then the last minute, I had to go with a 7. I was like, I know we're going to be so close on this one, probably.
Yeah, well, we have similar sensibilities, so it's not too outrageous. And speaking of similar sensibilities, what happens when a movie becomes popular enough that it spawns a sequel? A sequel nobody expected. Well, We're going to find out, because next week, ladies and gentlemen, Joe and I are going to get going down the Bill and Ted rabbit hole as we hit Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey.
I will be very curious to see what you thought about that one, my friend.
You know what? I'm just as curious to hear your review, because there's a lot of the interesting opinion with regards to the second movie and as much the third movie, which we'll get to in another week. But yes, I'm very much looking forward to it.
All right, brother. Thank you so much, and I will looking forward to the next one.
I am too, my man. You have yourself a great night. Everybody stay safe out there. It's freaking wildfires here in Seattle. Holy smokes.
Good luck, brother. And I will see you next week.
Thanks for listening to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe and Dave. Join us here every Thursday for a new episode, and be sure to check out the Reviews Without Remorse channel on YouTube for spoiler-free reviews of new releases. If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider becoming a Patreon. You can find our page on patreon.com/reviewswithoutremorse, one word. As little as $1 a month goes a long way. All clips in this podcast are for commentary and critique and is considered fair use. No copyright infringement is intended.
Thank you, San Dimas High! Bill and Ted out! Wow! Oh my God! How could anyone follow that? Ho ho ho! Well, here with the last report of the day is Katie Hong.
Whoever said behind every great man was a great woman must have known First Lady Abigail Adams. Sorry, Morticia, but I think Abigail was the best Mrs. Adams.
I can't listen to crappy jokes after the actual Napoleon was just out here cracking my ass up!
Oh, wow! Here to tell you what she thinks of San Dimas, it's Abigail Adams, also known as my mom.
Oh my God! Bill and Ted just did this concept, but so much better!
Get off the stage, Katie! Bill and Ted! Come on, guys! Bill and Ted! Somebody say our names?